song that we haven't sang for a long time. Oh, checky. Check, check, check. Nope.
Thank you so much. Oh, they could? Okay, perfect. That in the beginning, everything had God's full pleasure. Everything had God's satisfaction. And on the Sabbath, we celebrate being reconciled to that original satisfaction. Now, I think there are a couple of things that get in the way of us being able to experience Sabbath or being able to participate in Sabbath. And that's what I wanted to do, is I want to give us just a moment to talk about how it's going. And the reality is this is going to take years. If you thought that we would teach on Sabbath, shalom, and hospitality, and then 2022, by the year, well, let's say by the end of this year, that we would have it figured out, no way. This is going to take years. And so I want you to think for a moment, for some of us, Sabbath it's been a new concept. Some of us are like, we've never observed it, we've never even looked at it in our lives. I want to take a moment and ask you guys, how is it going? What's it been like this year to develop a new rhythm around rest? Anyone? I'm going to pass this around to you.
It's challenging. I don't feel like I'm hearing. They can hear me. Hi. It's challenging. At best, especially Fritz and I have committed our Tuesdays to a Sabbath day, and especially with the two of us Sabbathing together, but it's so encouraging. When it works, it is so encouraging, and we really, I think I can speak for myself, I really look forward to that day where we can draw nearer to God, do things that will help us to draw nearer to God, and then in the process we draw nearer to one another.
Another person want to share about their journey of learning how to Sabbath, how to rest and delight in God this year. Been that hard, huh? Let me just say this, guys. Look, that's why it's going to take time. My wife and I are not perfect at it. We have, little kids and so forth like that. Typically Saturdays or Sundays, we kind of treat it like a living document. It's not something that you're going to be perfect at. You just got to start, I think, to some degree. I think there's a couple of things that I've noticed people really struggle with. Number one is inconsistency. I think my wife and I were working to become consistent. That's the biggest thing. Need teaching. I think, honestly, we've taught on Sabbath. We probably need to teach on it a little bit more. Because honestly, until you get it in we call it gut theology, you really don't have it. And so if people really aren't practicing it and it's not experientialized and so forth like that, then it's really hard. Some people need it modeled. Do you think for a moment, is there anyone in your life right now that is a good example of practicing the rhythm of Sabbath? And then some of us, like myself, we have performance hang-ups. It's hard to slow down. It seriously is, because it feels like sometimes when you slow down, your anxiety goes up. Kind of weird how that happens. So we'll continue to talk about Sabbath, but I definitely, I don't know, we might put a survey out, because I think this is something we really need to focus on a little bit more. Okay. Shalom. What is shalom? What does it mean? Peace. Now, it's easy to think that shalom is just the absence of conflict, that's all it is. Actually, it's the presence of something. The presence of peace. It translates to peace in a way, but what it really translates to is wholeness or completeness. So in other words, if you think of, I think it's, let's see here, Joshua 8:31, we see that shalom is described as a stone with no cracks. It's just a flat piece of rock that no tool, no iron graven tool has ever touched. It's just solid block, no crevices in it at all. Shalom ultimately refers to something that is complex with a lot of pieces that are in a state of completeness. So if you can imagine for a moment, shalom isn't just about something being whole. It's also, if you have all this stuff going on, all these different families and systems and all the things that are going on, there's a harmony, even if you have all these different things going on as it comes to shalom. And then you see here in the New Testament specifically, so in the Old Testament, it's really that wholeness, that completeness. In the New Testament, we see Jesus come in to the picture. Now, here's the deal. In the Old Testament, it's kind of the standalone concept, but in the New Testament, Jesus becomes our peace. As Paul says in Ephesians 2:14 and 50, that Jesus is our peace. So in many ways, and you see it with Isaiah is kind of prophesying about this Prince of Peace who's going to come, and his peace will never end. And then Jesus comes on the scene, and there's a certain wholeness that Jesus brings that no other prophet brings. And I even find that for people in their lives now, that when you get a hold of Jesus, when you have him in your life, there's a certain wholeness. In John 14, we see that peace I leave you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world does. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not be afraid. It's a both and. So we see, and this is very important, that Jesus gives us rest. We have the Sabbath, right? And he also gives us peace, which is this wholeness or this completeness. It is very important that we get that. And let me tell you why. You can't get to hospitality if you don't have anything to invite people into. Think about that for a moment. What are you actually asking people into if you don't have rest and you don't have peace? What do you actually, hey, let's study the scriptures. I want you to come over and I want you to join my program or my church. And I don't really rest, and I don't really know how to calm down, and I don't really feel whole, and I haven't really been healing, and I haven't really been dealing, and I'm numb, so I haven't really been feeling. And so I'm just kind of wanting you to come so we can check a box, because I don't really have the thing I'm going to tell you you're going to get from Jesus if you join the club. But I want you to come out anyway because I'm supposed to ask you to come. How excited, not just are the people going to be, but are we going to be to invite people? You have to have something to invite people into. Honestly, that's what I'm so excited about this church. We were in Orlando, I taught 2 classes. And at the end, I bragged about the Omaha Church of Christ. And let me tell you what I bragged on. I bragged on Sabbath, shalom, and hospitality. And there were people who were interested in what we're doing. I've gotten emails from people, different parts of the country, and they're interested in what we're doing. Because when you have peace and you have this sense of rest, people want in on that. And we've grown. I put a blog article together. I haven't released it yet. I need to get some advice. Because, at times I can put stuff out that's a little bit, edgy or whatever. Anyway, in this article, I talked about how our church has been growing, and not just in terms of character or not just in terms of these abstract things. We've been growing numerically. And here's what it is. This is what I truly believe that God has been blessing. And let us not try to put it in a bottle and package it. I'm serious. Like, whenever we grow, don't ever try to domesticate God's spirit into something. Here's what I believe. We have to be countercultural and we have to be attractive. I actually brought this up in an interview recently with Ed and Deb Anton. Incredible couple in the down south. Anyway, we have to be countercultural. In other words, the Church of God, the Church of Christ, is a prophetic community. It is an alternative community. In other words, we are called to be set apart. And if this community wasn't something that was set apart, it wouldn't be the church. Like, there is something about being a Christian where you don't look like the world. I want to make that very plain. Like, we are to look different. But that doesn't mean that we aren't attractive. And that's the key. How do you present something that is attractive but also countercultural? Because typically what happens is if you make it attractive, you have to drop standards in terms of the Bible, or you have to all of a sudden sort of acquiesce into how the world does things. And that's not going to work for us, is it? That's not going to work for the community that we're called to be. That's why I believe the more we start to really adopt the rhythm of Sabbath in the process of becoming more complete, now all of a sudden we are countercultural and attractive. Because the reality is that the world doesn't teach people how to rest. People, when they come to us, they're exhausted. Think about it for a moment. Why is it that people have wanted in on this? I think to some degree is because they get the sense that we're running at a different pace and it's okay to go slower hurry is not a fruit of the Spirit, like Tim says. But I think the other aspect of it is that there's an aspect of completeness that we're really getting to. Hospitality, in terms of the textbook definition, if you will, means love of stranger. It's Philoxenian, which is philo, which means love, xenos, which means stranger. Here's what I think is so important about this, is it's the exact opposite of xenophobia. You guys have heard the term xenophobia? What does that mean? Fear of stranger, hate of stranger. And that's the complete opposite of what you see when it comes to hospitality. I love how Rosaria Butterfield puts hospitality. This is awesome. The turning of strangers into neighbors and neighbors into family. That we take somebody who's a stranger and they become a neighbor, and then people become neighbors, and then they become family. I went on a prayer walk this morning. I come back and my grass is mowed. Yeah, my receiving muscles, man, don't like that. I like to do it myself. My neighbor, Stuart, cut my grass for me. He's doing it better than me. He's being more hospitable than that. Like, seriously, when you look at, I think about my neighbors, do I know what's going on in my neighbor's life? Do I know their names? If I think about my neighborhood and so forth like that, it's like, man, we have an incredible opportunity. And I will say, for the first time in my life, I will say this with you guys. I would say right now, probably over the last couple of years, is the first time I've been excited to bring people to church in probably more than a decade. I could not be more proud of the Omaha Church of Christ. I mean it. I get a chance to go to different churches. I get a chance to speak with people, and there's a lot of people in different we have something special. However, I think to some degree there is an opportunity, and I'll just say this. If we don't get shalom and we don't understand the heart of Sabbath, we're not going to be able to transfer that to the people around us. We're just not. It's more caught than taught, man. Either you got it or you don't. People need a God who likes them, not just who created them. Like, when people are with us, like if I'm with Fritz or Colleen, I get this sense that God likes them. Yes. And when people are with us, we want to give them that sense too. And if he likes us, he can like them as well. People want peace and seek peace in ways that create even less shalom for themselves. People don't want to be, I'll just say this, a couple closing things. People don't want to be a piece on a board. They don't want to be manipulated. They don't want to be a part of a game. And think about it for a moment with your neighbor. They have front row seats into who you are. Are we going to fool our neighbors who live right next to us? My neighbor knows I haven't cut my grass in a month. Whatever it's been bad. But we can't fool them. Imagine going and all of a sudden just doing this whole, well, you want to come to church and this and that and the other thing, and they can kind of tell, people can tell when it's gimmicky. And that's what I'm excited about the Omaha Church of Christ, is because we're trying to do it from a space on the inside. When you create room for people on the inside, they make room for people on the outside, which I think is so amazing. I think some of us have had baggage that makes it hard for us to trust people we don't know. Maybe some of us have social anxiety. And I'll just say this, hospitality we see in Romans 12:13 is not really optional. With this when it comes to hospitality. It's a command. That we are commanded to be hospitable to people. Again, that process is going to feel less mechanical if we start to embody some of the things that you see as it relates to shalom and Sabbath. So let me just take a moment, and I want to ask folks, if there was one that you wanted to pick, because guys, I think we overload ourselves as Christians. Seriously, when it comes to Sabbath, shalom, and hospitality, I would just pick one to focus on this fall. If there's one that I was going to focus on, it would be Sabbath. I think that's what I can handle right now. Let me get that, right? Life by the inch is a cinch, but life by the yard is hard. So if there was one that you needed to focus on, what would it be? A couple people want to share? Yeah.
This is working. So I think if I would pick one, it would be peace. And, we've gone through a lot of transition over the last, I would say, year and a half or so. Getting out of the military, needing to totally rely on God, what's going to happen with the job, trying to move up here to be with our daughter, relying on God to take care of our daughter, relying on, just a lot of transition when you don't know what's coming up in the future. And I didn't feel peace. That scripture where we're supposed to help people that are feeling wearied and harassed. When Jesus says, I want to send you to go help out the wearied and those that need rest and harassed. I was feeling like I was wearied and harassed, and I was like, so how can I help them? What Kyle was just saying, if I don't have that. And I realized that I did not have peace, and I needed to do a lot of calling out to God, and I saw that it came from two places. One, fear. And tying that to Scripture, perfect love drives out fear. And in love, there's no fear. God is love, 1 John. So if there's a relationship between me and God and there's fear in it, then that means that I don't understand His love, and my love is not complete. So therefore, I need to develop a better understanding, get closer to God, so that I can trust in His love. If I'm trusting in His love and His sovereignty, then I won't fear what's coming that I don't know. The other thing that someone taught me, that reminded me, I would say, is that scripture that says to go to God in all kind of petitions and everything and offer thanksgiving, and then the peace that transcends understanding will come. So I needed then to start being more grateful for God. So if I'm trusting in God and I'm being grateful for God, then I have peace. If I have peace, I can rest. If I don't have peace, I can't rest. And so that is what I am working on. Sorry for going too long.
Oh, you're good. Someone else want to share something they would like to focus on this fall? Yes, brother.
I would say peace as well. And I think the thing that it's one of those things that what I feel like I really recognize that I have not been peaceful. That is like, man, this is a problem, and it feels unsettling. And one thing that I have been trying to do, not really just trying, but actually doing, is normally I go out and walk every morning, but I've been just sitting. And that also is unsettling because I'm like, I should be moving, I should be doing something, but sitting and just sort of listening and not constantly taking in all of God's creation, but just really just being still, I guess, is kind of where I'm going with this, to try to find peace. If my body is still, that my mind would kind of also be still. So like you said, work in progress, but I'm that's what I would be going for.
Someone else? Yes, Fritz.
Thank you. To me, I think peace or shalom is the key one of those three. If I practice shalom but I don't have peace or feel whole inside, that's a chaotic day for me. Shalom leads to hospitality. Without having peace and wholeness and oneness, like you said, hospitality sort of counterfeit. And so to me, being at peace is the free. Because that's my opinion.
I need to practice some Sabbath. I go and I go and I go. I go and I go and I go. And then this was the challenge earlier as well. It was like, man, I don't feel good. My body, I'm sick, or I get run down, and so then I have to take a day off. And so it's like, okay, now what? So then, okay, God is then I think that God cares for me. He wants me to slow down so that, I will sit and be still. But so taking those, being intentional about it, and saying, this hour, this day, this whatever, this time is, I'm not going to wait till I crash and burn.
One other person before we have the other. Yes.
I think one of the things I want to focus on is hospitality. I think I can get in my head of like what to say, what questions to ask, but just having people over and making food, and there's always laughter. It ends up going better than expected, and it's just like being present and getting to learn about each other, and like, always saying a prayer before a meal, and just like one, fun thing, one like spiritual thing. It's just brings me a lot of joy, even though I'm afraid sometimes to host or like what people might think of me. But it's just like that Martha just like sitting at the feet of Jesus and like just showing up as she is and just worrying about the important stuff. So just spending time with people.
It's interesting you say that. As she was talking, I thought, how many of our experiences when we got converted were because of hospitality? Go back and you think about your conversion narrative. Always together. People were giving of themselves. People were up late sometimes. Maybe you were studying the Bible with you, whatever it may be, campus ministry, singles, whatever. People were together all the time, always doing things together, always helping one another out. That culture, I think, was a really, really powerful thing. I remember when I was an 18-year-old sophomore or 18-year-old senior, that's what got me when I visited church in the Kansas City Church of Christ. Was I walked in and it was different. I knew it was different. Something felt different. And people were in each other's lives and so forth like that. I think the part was missing was Sabbath. I think many of us were running at a breakneck pace. And we had no idea. I mean, we weren't thinking 10 stoplights ahead of the wreck. Had no idea what that pace was going to do. But the wisdom of God, the rhythm has always been there. It's the wisdom of God. It's always been his plan to rest us, so to speak. So I think even if we start growing and we start doing hospitality again, we can't forget about rhythm. Because that, I think to some degree, is kind of part of maybe why it's taken so long to seek healing in different ways. Okay, so we're going to transition now to those who went to Orlando and who would like to come share. Who would like to come share first? Mavi. Come on, my sister. How about?
So I was there, and I was in the singles track, and I got there Sunday, and there were so many amazing things. Now, I'm like an older single, so I couldn't stay up late to fellowship. And I'm normally tired anyway, and tonight I'm really tired. But I couldn't do all that, but I could hang out with my friend Allison, who was 76 years old, and she's from Fort Wayne, and we did everything together. We hung out together everywhere we went, and it was a wonderful time. We met so many new people, and I made some new friendships, and it was wonderful. But I want to mention that there was a book table down in that one area. I remember it's like A1 and B2 and all the different auditoriums. Well, there was that huge like book table, and I just kept going around and around the book table. Which one, I had so much money I could spend. Which one did I want to get? Or which two did I want to get? Well, I ended up really with a really cool book, and in fact, the woman who wrote the book, I'm a fan of her, and I do her Zoom sessions. She has 4 Zoom sessions I'm in because I bought one of her books called Mind-Powered Singles. And her name is Crescenda Jones, and she wrote another book that you're supposed to read before this book, but I got this first, and then I'll read the other one. It's called Spiritual Transformation. And when I heard of that book, Spiritual Transformation, I thought of our spiritual discovery class. But I'm in the middle of this book, and I'm in the middle of her Zoom sessions. She has it Saturday mornings for 4 weeks. And what I'm learning is that we actually have a subconscious mind that's actually directing everything we do. And this is very interesting to me because, Kyle has spoken a lot. Our whole movement of churches, we've been learning a lot about trauma and different things. And like, why am I a Christian, but I keep doing the same things? I can't connect with God, or I keep going through all that kind of stuff, And this has been my story, forever and ever. And so I'm hoping to get some really good insights. She does this thing called, what was it called? Like timeline therapy something. And so I'm going to be interested in doing something like that. I don't know much about it. I'm halfway in the book and I still have to read the other one, but she was a speaker there, Crescenda Jones. She's an older single like me. She's like a few years older than me. But anyway, I can't even, I take all day to talk about everything about the conference. It was amazing. But that is what I took away.
I thought Tim sent around a, yeah. Oh, you didn't go? Did you guys want to share? Yeah, come on.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like God always has a theme for my life. Always. And he just relentlessly pursues me through that theme. And even when we were talking about Sabbath, that Fritz and I about a year ago went to a spiritual retreat up in Alaska, and it was a week long, and it was so funny to me because Fritz said this week, honey, I don't think that is a time in my life when I experienced the greatest peace I've ever had. And I thought, remember that, right? Is that what you told me? Something like that. Good. It was my interpretation, so I didn't want to get it all wrong. But I thought, that's what I feel like God is leading me through, and Fritz as well. But I picked up Virginia Leffler has this book, and we're actually going to be going through it as a group, and I'm so excited for us to go through it as a book, because I don't know about you guys, but for me to shut off and shut down is next to impossible. And so to quiet my mind and quiet my being is so incredible. And it brings about something that I don't understand and I can't make happen on my own. And so it's really amazing. But the conference was so full of people talking about peace, people talking about love. I mean, all the fruits of the Spirit. It was such a different flavor for me personally. It's about how we can be whole as people, what we can do for ourselves through God so that we can be more for other people. because we can't be more. I've tried over the years to be more for other people on my own, thinking I had the power somehow, and it leads to burnout. And so really recognizing and figuring out how to do it God's way is so incredible. So I so appreciate even what you're doing with us tonight, Kyle, and that's what I so appreciated about the conference. And one of my other really favorite things is Fritz and I rented those little scooters. And we went for a ride, and we got to spend time with like the people that we went to Israel with. We had dinner with them one night. I mean, the fellowship is amazing with people that you don't see for years, and then you see them and your heart just comes to life again and says, wow, I didn't even realize how much I missed you. But I'm so grateful that I get to be with you again. And there's no pressure in it. It's not like, oh, shame on me. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. It wasn't that at all. It was, wow, I'm just so grateful that we again get to spend time together. So it was amazing. And when you see saw the worship and people connecting, and it was about reaching out to God. It wasn't about reaching out to one another, because it was dark. You couldn't see what your neighbor was doing. And so all you had was you and the worship. So I just thought it was an amazing experience.
All right, so I didn't plan on this, so I'm just going to get behind this here. So it was, let's see, there were a lot of themes. So I tried to package the conference into different ideas. I thought about debriefing with some other people. It's like, what am I going to take away from it? There's a lot of lessons to learn. The first thing that I learned was I can trust my wife. I didn't have to plan anything to get there. All I needed to do was make sure I had the days off and trust in God. So that was awesome. Just that being able to say, hey, babe, let's go, and we believe that God's going to make it happen. That was a big thing. So, and then getting there, and then trusting God that He's going to work the details out. Brother and sister in California, we talked to them. They said, hey, how about you use our condo down in Kissimmee, Florida, and you can have her for $300 for the week. And we're like, wow, that's awesome. So that was like one thing. But then there were all these little like miracles. Like you'd think, oh, that's so coincidental. That's just so coincidental that this person, I was, in the hall there, and then, my wife had got us, I don't know, preferred seating somehow. Somehow we had preferred seating, so we were up front. And then they were kind of pushing people out, not letting them sit there. And then all of a sudden, the minister from my campus ministry from, I don't know, decades ago, he was right there. And I hadn't seen him since his daughter was like, 2 years old. And now she's an adult, and just awesome stuff like that. And there were probably 3 of those encounters where I hadn't seen somebody for 20 years. Somebody that had Hodgkin's lymphoma back in, 94. And I thought, well, that person, the way that is. So I thought he'd be gone. But so there were a lot of those little miracles, thinking about, wow, I haven't seen anybody from Hawaii. And I kept it to myself. And as we were leaving the conference to go to dinner, there's this group of people, and they're wearing Hawaiian shirts. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I look at their tag, they're from Honolulu. I'm like, wow, or Oahu. And I go, hey, babe, they're from Oahu. And my wife was baptized in 1995 in Oahu. And she said, hey, I was in Oahu in 1995. That's when I was baptized. So 1995 was a long time ago, right? It was a long time ago. And so then we get to talking to them, and they say, oh, you're from Omaha. Do you know Fritz and Colleen? We went to Israel with them. And so I'm like, wow, God, that's amazing. So, and then Marcus knows them. Oh, that's Auntie Biba. That's Brian. And it's like, wow, what a connection. And then I was walking with Tito, and I was trying to form this question to him. I said, what was I trying to say? It's like, what's the furthest away that you've met somebody? It's like, you see somebody from, Alaska or Hawaii or someplace. And as soon as I was thinking that phrase, picking up that phrase, two sisters from New York just came rushing up to Tito, Tito! And I'm like, wow, God's just God. And then as we were the last service, this is another time, I was thinking, I haven't seen anybody from the UK. I haven't seen anybody from the UK. And I was leaving with Shannon Van Zee, and we were going to go to the car, and you know how fellowship was. You start and stop, and you go, and you stop, and you go, and stop. And then I turn this corner, and there's this sister there. Her hair is just flaming red hair, and freckles and stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's from Ireland. I'm like, wow. So I felt God was just reminding me. The brother that met me, haven't spent a lot of time with him in the past 20 years. And he was there, and we got them to come down. We got to see his daughter get baptized. So it was really good to reconnect, to hear people's stories again, and then recommit to the brothers here in the church and have quiet times together. And not just over the phone, but using technology to connect and to pray together and to share our hearts. It's just been awesome. So, yeah, I wasn't planning on any of that.
Tito.
So my daughter wanted to share first.
My favorite part of the conference was being able to see friends I haven't seen in a long time from New York after many years, and it felt good to be able to talk to them again and see them.
I think for me, it was, okay. I think the humbling of the conference, going to the conference, seeing people, it's always great. You get to hang out with people, relax, it's like a little bit of heaven here on earth. But it was just, being able to see what else I lack and how much more I still have to grow and not getting stagnant in my faith. And so seeing those key areas, particularly in my family and who I need to be for my children. And so that was really hard, but at the same time having faith put into me that, all right, you see what's wrong, you see what you got to grow and you got to change, but keep going, because my nature is when I see what's wrong, it's like, that's it, I quit, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, like I'm such a failure, I don't even want to try. But I think it was the goal here, his wife was sharing, really helped me to just take it in, like, this is a spiritual battle. It's a long haul. This isn't right now. I'd like to do all the right things now. I'd like to help my girls get all the right things now. But it's keeping my focus on heaven and knowing that God is always working, even when I can't see it. He's still working. Instead of getting faithless and just looking at the circumstance, trust that there's a bigger picture at play. So that was probably my favorite thing.
So you guys know me, I like brevity. I like to keep things brief. Here's what I want to do, if we can. I would like for people to pair up twos or threes, pray, and just pick one of those things. Remember we talked about Sabbath, Shalom, hospitality. Pray about one of those. Beg God to form you. Beg him. I mean, I'm going to start begging God, and I hope he humbles me through his blessings. But I need this to click because my faith has to last me the rest of my life, right? Like Tito was just in a way saying, and I just think like as I'm looking out tonight, all of us, we have jobs and everything, like people are exhausted to some degree. School, studying and all of that, like people are exhausted. And so for some of us, this is going to be the thing that saves our faith. Like we really, really need this right now. So beg God, find a couple of people. After that, we're dismissed. Amen? All right.